Can't believe you're back on this bullshit, Ryan.
What could you possibly mean by that?
It's the start of the year, right?
It's well after the start
It's
of the year.
start of the year. We're
you
less
can't
than...
keep saying that after like 2 weeks after the start of the year.
It's the start of the year, Ryan, right? It's still cold in England. It's January, and I'm back to reading bollocks.
Well, that's a shame for you, because we're doing the greatest Superman story ever told. Hit the music. Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lyric Podcast. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books. My co-host loves regular books, but I make him read comic books, and then we talk about them in depth. And with me, as always, my aforementioned all-star co-host is Jamie. What is that sad sack expression for?
It's just so bad, Ryan.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. This is going to be a fun episode because we are on opposite sides.
Well, you like this
I
bullshit.
loved it. I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Well,
I loved it strong. I really enjoyed it.
Well, give them the credits, and then I can tell you all the reasons you're wrong.
Well, just so everyone knows, we're doing All-Star Superman in the lead up to the big Superman release later this year. The Gunniverse is officially starting in the DC Universe, and I am hyped, and I'm sure the listeners are as well, despite my co-host's lack of hype from this comic book, apparently. But this is a very interesting one because we're going to be talking about We're going to be talking about credits for a while because there is a lot of interesting stuff about the writer. Do you know anything about the credits for this?
No, who wrote it?
So it was written by a writer named Grant Morrison. So Grant Morrison, first things first, non-binary, they them pronouns.
Cool.
So
they did a bad job.
So they are a really interesting. They're considered one of the greatest comic book writers, right? They are literally comparable in most circles to Alan Moore, not only for the writings they've done. Yep, 100%.
No.
You are in the minority in this one, my friend.
Really?
Yep. You are your finger's well off the pulse of comic book quality on this one. So
I mean, as Alan Moore, who is a better writer than Gunn, has established, that's because comic book fans
James
are man
Gunn?
babies. James Gunn. I don't know.
what are you talking about James Gunn for? Grant Morrison?
Grant Morrison.
Right.
Who's James Gunn?
James Gunn's the guy rebooting the DC universe. The DC
Oh, well,
film
that's why
universe.
you just used his name.
Yes.
Yeah, fair.
Sorry, should I not have used two different people's names in such close proximity to each
No,
other?
because I'm in a bad mood.
And that you... What?
I was in a good mood, and then I read this comic book, and now I'm in a bad mood.
Well, I'm excited to hash it out. But before, I thought you'd be interested to know that Grant Morrison not only is compared in terms of like quality of writing to Alan Moore and the scope, they're also a bit of a self-confessed chaos magician on something and sigil magic.
They think they're a wizard.
It's a magic person as well, just
They
like Alan
think
Moore.
they're a wizard.
And you know what's especially funny as well?
What's that?
They're so alike to Alan Moore in so many ways. Apparently, they can't stand each other as well.
Well, of course they can't. We've found the anti-Moore.
I mean, they're so similar so many ways, but I think it's one of those things where they're like, they both rub people up the wrong way.
Yeah.
So apparently a lot of it to do with, I've been doing a lot of Morrison research, right?
Why?
Apparently because I find them fascinating. And I mean, in the same way I find Alan Moore fascinating. And one of the things about them is why there's no real like distinct, like this is why they don't like each other or anything like that. But apparently what you can work it around to is they're just kind of critical of each other's work. And apparently looking at the kind of time frame, it was around the noughties when Morrison was kind of coming up and being considered like the next big thing in comics and everything. And it was at that time that Moore was out of the door of comics and was shitting on it as a medium and everything. So what you had was Morrison kind of not even overly talking shit about Moore, but just kind of like being a bit critical because they were being celebrated by the industry at that time. So to the past person who just got out was like shitting on it. They were like, they literally made a point of like, I think it's a bit damning that the person who is most heard from the comic industry is like talking shit about it.
Yes.
And Moore being like, fuck you, that's my experience. I don't fucking, that kind of thing.
Moore had a pretty crap experience of it, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. But the point being is, they are just critical of each other in ways that I think is, when it's just like, immovable force, unstoppable object thing. It's just kind of like...
Right. No, you can't start... You can't start making little nods to the comic book that I hate.
I mean, it was such a great comic book, I can't help it. But anyway,
do you sincerely think this was great?
I thought it was really good. And continuing the credits, we've also got drawn by Frank Quietly, a longtime collaborator of Morrison's, and inked by Jamie Grant.
So the art is my first issue.
You don't want to go big broad strokes?
No, I want to get in there.
All right, starting with the arting then.
It's jacked up throughout.
I would say I like the art for the most part. But I did have a big area of critique, which I think you'll probably agree. looking at your face, I didn't like the close-ups of faces. I thought they were really off-putting and really weird at points.
Right. So I'm going to show you something now. This is Superman's neck. You'll notice that his neck is as wide as his entire face.
Yeah, I think that is congruent with the style of the entire comic.
That's jacked up.
That is how he looks in like.
This is jacked up.
That is how he looks in the entire comic. Though.
This is jacked up.
Yeah, you've shown me all these things. That is how he looks in this comic.
It's jacked up, mate. It's awful.
I think it's a stylistic choice.
It's okay. It's a stylistic choice, but it is fugly.
Hey, that's fair.
It is distinctly unattractive. I don't think the art is ever doing anything to move the story along in a meaningful way.
I think it tells the story, and it's got some beautiful splash pages.
No, they're not beautiful, though.
The one where he's flying on the sun, right near the beginning?
Yeah, it's all jacked up. It doesn't look good.
You really didn't like that.
I
That's
didn't.
Blowing me away that you didn't like
this
that.
This comic book is ugly, Ryan.
The faces are ugly at points. 100%. That was what I was coming with already. But the rest of it's great.
2/3 of the fun of this comic book is, oh, look at Clark Kent being all chubby and oafish. Oh, look at Superman being all perfect and handsome. But they both look as jacked up as each other.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous thing of the Superman character.
Superman as Bruce Wayne looks like he's just been on
Bruce Wayne?
As Clark Kent.
There we go.
Looks like he's just been on a course of medicinal steroids and his face is blown up. It's honestly, the whole thing just looks jacked up. The only character design I liked was Lois Lane's in her super in the issue
super
where Lois Lane in the super suit was kind of okay, but then that whole issue was hot garbage in terms of the writing.
What, with the Samson and the
Samson's here and there's two other heroes that are vying for her attention and they're saying weird zany shit about mythology. No, it's bland.
I thought it was just fun. I liked how Superman was slowly trying not to get pissed off with them.
You and I have very different ideas of fun.
I mean, normally we're on the similar page, and I'm genuinely surprised I'm not surprised your critique on the art. I'm not that surprised. I was expecting it with the faces. I shouldn't have been surprised talking about the build, but the fact that even the big splash pages and again that shot when he's flying by the sun, I thought that's generally really great.
It's just, but
is this one of those things where
what's great about it?
Pissed off about one aspect? And
no, tell me what's great. I don't like any of it. Tell me what's great about that panel.
It just looks cool. He's flying by the sun. You got the rest of the space there. It just looks really fun.
Is it anything that we've not already seen?
It's a good aspect, and we don't see much of it in that way. We've not seen many comics devote a entire splash page to that aspect, them flying past. Normally they're so trying to conserve page space and stuff. They're no, we can't do that. Let's get on with it, kind of thing.
I could go on the internet now and find you 1 million panels, 1 million splash pages that look exactly like that.
But this one happened in 2006, and I think that they've all happened since then. I'm not saying there wasn't any before.
Are you arguing that this art is groundbreaking?
Not even groundbreaking.
Because it's not.
Doing the best version of it by that time.
It's not special.
It's not special, but it doesn't have to be special to be nice and beautiful.
But it's not even particularly beautiful.
I would disagree.
All of the character models are jacked up. All of the faces are jacked up. The anatomy is basically okay most of the time, but it's none of it was any good.
I know with Superman, there is a thing where at that time he was just drawn bigger than everyone else. That was just the thing that people did at the time, and I think people continued it despite it. Nowadays, a lot different. He is a lot more normal looking, for lack of a better term, compared to everyone else. But yeah, and I don't mind they did it in there because again, I've seen a bunch of it. So it's one of those things that I don't care as much about. And I get what you mean. Clark Kent looks like a hulking man compared to everyone else. And they go, oh, Clark, you dimwit. I get that as a critique. Absolutely. Also, doesn't make me hate it, though.
This ekes into my grievance with the story as well.
Okay.
Because there's this hulking man. So in this iteration of Superman, Lois Lane isn't Clark Kent's girlfriend anymore. She's Superman's girlfriend. And she doesn't believe that Clark Kent is Superman despite his protestations, right?
Basically, yeah.
And everybody sees this great hulking man following Superman's girlfriend around out of costume and doesn't go, do you think that Goliath that keeps following around Superman's girlfriend might actually be fucking Superman.
Well, so depends how many people like actually see him, because how many people are like looking at. I don't know if Lois Lane is famously Superman's other half or not. That's what I mean. I don't think anyone like knows that like as public information.
Again, though, it's just it doesn't make any sense. Her being Superman's girlfriend and not Clark Kent's. They've tried to do something new and interesting with the story, but it's neither particularly interesting, and it just opens up all of these weird plot holes.
I think the main plot is the one that is just with the Superman character, just generally, which is the glasses and matted down hair being a good enough disguise or not for people. Like, that's the thing.
I think there was a real world example that I think you may have even mentioned on the podcast, where actually changing somebody's haircut and whacking a pair of glasses on them is a pretty effective disguise. And that changes somebody's face enough that day to day they wouldn't be recognizable.
But your point is he is the only person who's the same shape as Superman.
Yeah, he's this great hulking character, and like Lois Lane's boyfriend being like an ultimately very good writer who exists in the same world as her professionally. Lois Lane has always worked with Clark Kent, hasn't she? Yeah. In most iterations she does.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, people would buy that. Like, he's a bit of a clumsy dude, but he's very big and very handsome and very clever, and it makes sense that those two would date. But her being Superman's girlfriend and then having the only chap in fucking Metropolis who's built like an absolute unit constantly following her around, I don't buy it.
Yeah, again, that's a fair enough critique of, like, he was drawn too big to everyone else. It just didn't ruin my enjoyment of the rest of the comic. Like, I agree with you on the individual point.
I'm okay with comic books that aren't stunning as long as the story's good. But when we get into it, I don't think this was particularly good.
I'll tell you why I enjoyed the story. I'll tell you a bit about, I don't know if I've got much else about the art before we move on to the story. Again, the line work, for some reason, there was just too many lines on people's faces a lot of the time.
It was just all jacked up.
And even when there wasn't too many lines on people's faces, some of the faces when they zoomed in I didn't mind them when they were like side profiles. Again, ignoring your, jacked up thing.
What, the neck being...
So he's already jacked up. If they gave him a smaller neck than that, he'd look even worse.
Well, no, but...
You're saying he shouldn't have been that big in the first place.
Well, no, his neck shouldn't protrude almost as far out as his chin does in profile. Have you ever seen a human being where their Adam's apple and their neck protrudes out as far as their chin that doesn't have a hideous life-ending disease?
But then this is where we're getting into the critique that outsiders can use, which is the whole, like, it's a man who flies and shoots lasers out of his eyes, and that's, like, they don't then look at the further details.
But
as
he's
nobly realistic.
supposed to be humanoid.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't affect the story for me.
If you're portraying me with a humanoid... Don't put a muscle that doesn't exist on the human form that protrudes out as far as his chin over the front of his fucking Adam's apple. Like, it doesn't look good. It's not anatomically correct. Like, I can get behind something that isn't anatomically possible that, like, is visually interesting or pleasing. Early Deadpool, where Deadpool is just fucking jacked. That doesn't really fit Deadpool's character. It's not particularly, doesn't really make sense in context. It's not particularly anatomically correct, but it looked cool, so people let it fly. Hulking Superman in the 80s. Yeah, superheroes are meant to be big, but those guys were at least trying to nail down some of the anatomy and not have bits of the body that wouldn't be muscled appear to be muscled. Like, you don't have a muscle on in front of your Adam's apple on the front of your neck. Why draw him with one?
But then I think even that's the extreme other side of, like, a lot of the rest of the characters, they're then very skinny. Like, every other character, apart from, like, what's his name? The guy, the editor of the newspaper, everyone else is, like, overly skinny. So again...
This is my other problem. Lex Luthor appears very normal, and then we see him throwing weights around and getting absolutely prison jacked. And it's like, well, he said he spent his entire life in prison because of Superman.
I think in and out of prison.
Yeah, but... He's not jacked 1 minute and he's jacked the next minute, and he has no superhuman strength. He's just really big, clever. Like, even they've not even got a good level of consistency panel to panel for particular characters.
I think I don't know how much time it was between him getting sentenced and that interview. We don't know because that's the thing. They have cleverly, well, I say cleverly, they avoid giving a particular time frame of, like, Superman, you've got 1 year, and there's like the 12 issues of the 12 months or anything like that. It's just an extended amount of time, isn't it? So we don't know. And I get what you mean. Like, it is implied that these things happen kind of sequentially close to each other. So I'm not like, didn't you see? But that's just my thing. It's like, if there's a time between issues, we don't know how long that's been between them.
I don't know. I found the art really egregious. I found it really bad.
I ranged from you on certain aspects, like where you are on certain aspects, but I really enjoyed other parts. So I'm kind of I'm not fully like, I loved it, but like there are splash panels and page and stuff that I really enjoyed. And I just liked how it told the story where I always knew what was going on and everything as well. Yeah.
So, adhering to a structure, because if not, I'm just going to rant. Would you
also,
like to
with the art, I did like that very early on, there's a bit where there's tilted panels within like a page, and the speech bubbles are also tilted with the panels. Yes. I like that little detail.
Well, no, because then I had to tilt the fucking thing to read it.
Like 5 degrees. Like, you didn't have to 90 degree your neck to read it.
No, but Superman could have done with his giant neck.
He might not be able to look around at all. He might have Batman cowl syndrome.
Yeah. So, the story.
The story, yes.
I'm not giving a brief overview of this story.
That's
because fine. I found it detestable, but I would like you to do it.
Sure.
Just, I need the readers to know the hot mess that this story is.
I mean, a lot happens in it. And to be fair, and I forgot because of the hot trail you came into this with, I was going to read a little bit about what like they were thinking when they made this comic, or like what they were going for. So what they were thinking was...
They weren't thinking! Nobody engaged brain in the production of this title.
They were looking to do something fresh and relevant and update the Superman character, while also kind of... They were trying to make like the... How best to describe it, because I can't find the exact words. They're trying to make a timeless Superman story that wasn't an origin and didn't follow the classic narrative. So the narrative we're normally used to of Superman's Supermaning about... Something happens, he goes to save it, and then it leads to more or whatever. Then there's a big bad and whatever.
Pretty much what happens here.
It's that loose structure.
They've not deviated far enough from the structure to say that they wanted to do something that didn't adhere to the structure. That is exactly what we get 12 issues of.
But for me,
we get 10 issues of it because we then get 2 issues of bollocks.
Oh, you mean the Cube World stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I wasn't as big a fan of that, so I'll give you that.
It's nearly 10% of the entire bloody comic book.
2 out of 12 issues, 1/6 of the comic book. So yeah, it's a significant amount.
Nearly 10%.
Yeah. That was my least enjoyed part of it, but I didn't hate it as much as you, obviously. But yeah, they were trying to do something. They were trying to make a timeless version of Superman, and outside of your opinion, most people agree that this like the ultimate Superman comic. Like,
is it really?
Yes. The one that kind of describes the character and his relationships with everyone the best.
Dude, Moore knocked it out of the park in the 80s with The Man Who Has Everything.
No, that was intentionally different from everything.
Yeah, and it was good.
I also enjoyed that.
But this was intentionally different to everything, and it wasn't good.
I think this is better than The Man Who Has Everything.
No, The Man Who Has Everything's great.
The Man Who Has Everything was fun. Was a fun, like, what-if story and everything.
So Superman shouldn't be fun?
Yeah, no, this is fun and great.
But I don't think it's fun or great.
I think it's both. And I'll tell you why. I'll
tell you for why.
So the overall story is, for anyone who is listening to this and hasn't read All-Star Superman, I recommend it. I don't think Jamie does, but
no, I recommend you do anything else. Like, go get a Cornetto. Have a nice day.
As someone who's not generally a Superman fan, I did find this to be like, oh, this feels like the ultimate Superman depiction. And the general story is he saves a group of scientists who are basically flying around near the sun.
Yeah.
But by getting that close to the sun, and also just to establish this is kind of an Elseworld story, so it doesn't adhere to the continuity at the time of the main universe.
Also, he literally stole the premise from Greek mythology.
What, Icarus?
Yeah.
I mean, that's... To say it's stolen from Greek mythology is influenced by.
He flew too close to the sun, and that was like the instigator of his end.
Yeah, but it's not like he had wings that melted. I think it's more
he had a solar-powered body that got overpowered. Yeah. That's obviously no more dumb.
I think it's more to do with the point of he gets his powers from the sun, and now it's the thing that gave him his powers is now the thing that's killing it.
You have too much power, Superman. Your batteries are overloaded. I can see it under my skin. It's just
You
bollocks.
can say anything in that voice and reduce it, can't you?
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice. I'm returning it. No, The Great Gatsby still sounds good.
Oh, I'm a rich man. I'm sad. If I was to the party, maybe a woman will come by, but she hasn't. That's The Great Gatsby. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying you can reduce anything.
Well, no, I was quoting almost directly from the comic book.
Right.
And it's silly. It's not good.
It's superhero shenanigans.
Oh, it's so much superhero shenanigans. I think that's my issue with it. It's just superhero shenanigans ladled on top of superhero shenanigans.
Well, considering
it's like,
Superman's the original superhero, it makes sense that his quintessential story would be full of superhero shenanigans. Because he's the character that started it all.
Because we both celebrate comic books that do fun, interesting, fresh things with these old characters.
So you not think it was fresh and interesting to have Superman facing his mortality?
No, because I've seen it before.
When?
A superhero facing
Superman. Yeah.
I've literally seen Superman as a young, frail boy.
Frail boy?
Yeah.
When?
When he's trapped underground and he's all skinny and he flies out in the
bloody Flashpoint.
I've seen him.
I've
seen him very literally sit there and contemplate what his life would have been like without leaving Krypton. I just don't think Superman facing his mortality is particularly interesting.
Bearing in mind, this did this before any of those things did. So, like, this was before those.
I like the space Nazis better.
Well, I really enjoyed Superman facing his mortality. I liked how he just immediately was like, I need to do everything I need to do. And like his kind of bucket list, he's kind of working out what he needs to do beforehand. And he's not like, I think it's a very good representation for Superman for him to not just be like, oh my God, like, can we do anything? Like, he's just takes it immediately on the chin. He's just like, right, okay, that's how it is. And
Human Target did it better.
Human Target did it after, again. Like,
but it did it better.
I will say I do prefer Human Target to this, if we're splitting hairs. But I still think this is good. It's not as good as Human Target, but it's still good.
I've read cereal boxes that are more compelling.
Now, I think you're just attacking it now. I think you're attacking it in bad faith now.
No, I really didn't like it, Ryan.
No, it's fair you didn't like it.
I genuinely don't think it's good. Like, there's maybe 2 plot points that I thought were okay and that I enjoyed. Beyond that, I didn't find any merit in it.
Well, I liked, again, that he's kind of trying to get through, like, all these things he needs to do before he dies. And it just, again, this superhero bollocks keeps coming up. But it's the stuff that keeps coming up in his life before any of this happened. So I liked that he's kind of like, I need to get this done and this done. I ain't got much time left. And it's like, Superman, there's a cube world has come into the Earth. And even he's a bit like, for God's sake, like, all right, like, I think this was in the same way that I enjoy Captain America. Like, this was that kind of vibe of a guy just being like, even though he's, as far as he knows, near death, he's just like, just gotta suck up and get on with it. Like, just gotta, save the day and do as I've been doing, I really like that overarching theme of the comic.
I just don't think they did a lot with it.
I think they did enough to, I think they didn't do many different things because they were focusing more on this character and his journey through it. Now, it wasn't as consistent. I'll give you that. Like, it's not like a consistent through line through all the 12 issues, but I felt like when we went away from it, it did like some interesting stuff. And then when it came back to it, then it felt like a reminder of like, oh yeah, he's dying.
But it was just him stoically accepting death. Like, the thing that's interesting about watching a character face their own mortality is watching them face their own mortality and the very human struggle with that. But he sort of just Supermans it. He's like, cool, I'm gonna die. I just need to get my shit in order. And it's like, it was like watching the last months of a really old person who's like,
just accepted it, yeah.
Death is near. I need to I need to deal with the mortgage and plan the funeral. And it's Superman being like, well, I'll give Lois Lane a last nice day with me and I'll, do this and I'll do that and I'll just get this done. No, I need to go do some superhero work. That's dispatched with quite handily now. The fact that him dying, he's more powerful than he's ever been while he's in the process of dying.
Yes.
And so it doesn't weaken him. It doesn't present any other challenge for him.
I mean, it does in the last 2 issues.
Yeah, right at the end.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it makes him more powerful because the thing that's killing him is that he's, for want of a better word, his solar batteries are too charged.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we're not even seeing him have to struggle with the incumbent loss of vitality that comes with the end of life. He's stronger than he's ever been, carting about, doing his thing, with an undercurrent theme of, I know I don't have much time left, but they don't do anything interesting with that.
See, I think, for me, what came across, how I interpret it was, the reason that he's not, like, bothered by the mortality in the immediate sense, like, the fragility or whatever, or like the notion of it. I think Superman being Superman, he actually has faced it like every day, or at least every adventure leading up to then. So, because from his perspective, we know reading normal comics, he's not gonna die, right? But in the character's perspective, every time he fights a new monster that he doesn't know, or like hits a meteorite out of the air, he doesn't know he's coming back. Like, he doesn't know if he's going to meet his limit, but he pushes on anyway. Why
is it so interesting to watch him face his mortality then?
Because this is it happening at this time, whereas when he's going into these battles or, fights or like whatever's happening, like you remember that thing before in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
she was stuck on that planet.
Yeah.
That Superman had been to, he was stuck on that planet.
Yeah.
He could have died in that situation and think that Justice League rescued him, and it built up Supergirl because she was there for longer and had to survive longer. But even that is an example of, like, he's been in these scenarios, kryptonite involved or whatever, where he could have died, and at no point then, I think he's so used to being, in his perceived mind, so close to possible death, and now it's got here's when it's actually going to happen kind of conversation. It's like he's been used to it for so long that now it's just kind of finally here. It's the Hamilton thing, isn't it? It's what's the lines in the song where it's like, on my feet, my death 10 feet ahead of me or something, or known it for so, I can't remember the exact lyrics, but you know what I mean. When you've been around it for so long, you feel closer to it your entire life. So when there's finally here, it's more familiar.
But again, they don't do anything interesting with that.
Again, I think how he reacts to it is the interesting part. The fact that he's not like worrying and crying and like, oh my God, I'm going to die soon. Like, that's what's interesting to me.
But then it's just a lot of nothing.
But then it's him, all these things happening, the reflection of his life leading up to before then, all this superhero shenanigan bollocks happening, and him just rushing around being like, oh, I've got to do this. There's a story later on where the two Kryptonians show up after the Cube World bollocks.
Yeah.
And they are immediately like, we're going to rebuild this place as new Krypton, and it's a bloody shame you haven't done it yet. And they beat him up and stuff, and they're like, bollocks you ever. And then they have a very quick, like, reflected version of what he's going through, where it turns out their blood has minerals from Krypton, and they've become kryptonite, and they're killing them, basically. Yeah. And again, the great representation of Superman being like, gets them to the fortress, puts them basically palliative care and looks after them and gets their final thoughts before they die and stuff. Like, he's witnessing what's about to happen to him, essentially, like happening to these other kryptonites.
But we don't get to see it really affect him. So it's not interesting if we don't get to see the actual human effect of it.
I think the small parts that we do see it affect him is when he's writing his will, and that, like, he's just sitting in this chair kind of solemnly, like, getting it all out and stuff. And even, I'll tell you as well, so we're going to get into all spoilers now, I think, because I think we're going to have to talk about this overarching plot and how it ends and stuff and why it worked for me and everything. So spoilers for me. If you haven't read All Star, again, I recommend it. Not everyone else in this room might, but I do.
No, it's not very good.
I don't even want to recommend it as like a test of like, do you agree with who people agree with? Like, read it and write in and say if you liked it or not.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to put yourself through it, if
you want to bang in a couple of hours, is what I'm saying. If you like Superman and stuff.
It was a couple of hours as well.
Again, the art is kind of janky at points. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's not kind of janky at points. It's shit throughout.
Aren't you glad I told you to skip that one issue with Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay. The 1 hour I was giving you, I was like, you could skip that one. It doesn't make any difference.
But again, I don't know how you can, like, sit here and so vehemently defend something that even you were like, well, actually, you can drop 8% of it.
I mean, you can. I wanted to read it.
Did you read that issue?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
No, that one you could take out in that. So, yeah, a fair criticism of the series.
Absolutely take out the one with the only one that had some elements that I kind of liked is the one where Lois Lane gets powers, because I was like, oh, this is cool. Gonna be honest with you, if it was 12 issues of that, I'd have been stoked.
Yeah, that was a fun one as well.
12 issues of superpowered Lois Lane, I'd have been like, yeah, this is a cool idea. This is a cool core concept. But they bung it out for an issue and then they're like, right, we're going to go back to the bollocks now. Like, it just...
Again, another thing I liked is he planned this day to spend with Lois while she's got powers for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then the bollocks, these two arseholes come up who are like, oh, we're fucking doing all this to her. And he gets... how frustrated he gets when it's revealed that they stole the gems from the old Sphinx, something, again, very super shenanigan, some Egyptian god thing. But they're like, oh yeah, we just wanted to trick you to solve the thing because we're from the future where it turns out you answered the unanswerable question as one of these trials or whatever. And he's so like, you motherfucker, like you fucking putting her life in fucking jeopardy just for this bollocks. And then when he sorts out, he's like, right, we're getting out of here. Yeah. And they do this one little last, like, oh, bloody hell, Superman, you think we're bloody stronger than you, are we? And he's just like, right.
And he breaks it
and
up.
His version of that is, let's go have an arm wrestle.
Yeah.
And he does it. They do it in this isolated area. So they have to worry about, like, bystanders or whatever. And just fuck it, both of them. And that's Superman's version of, like, snapping. He's like, I'm going to embarrass them, but I'm still going to be really, like, cordial about it and stuff, and breaks one of their arms because, again, they're arm wrestling, and he's like, I'm not budging if you keep trying, like something bad's gonna happen. And he breaks one of their arms. I think the other one he chucks in the ocean or whatever. And again, I just enjoyed that, like, you can tell the one thing he wanted was just to fly around with Lois all day. And also the funny thing for me as well is Lois is like, this is what I want out of her 24 hours. So Superman can't even be like, oh, I wish we'd done something else, because you're like, oh, well, she's happy. Like, I guess this is what I planned, but
no, of the issues, that was my favorite.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that was my favorite.
I enjoy the first one where he's when they're testing his strength and he's pushing down that thing. It's like, that's 200 quintillion tons pressure. Like, that's
bollocks.
The super bollocks I love.
And there are the occasional, like, there are the very occasional moments where it's like not all doom and gloom. But in general, I didn't think much of the writing.
I thought, so getting into spoiler territory, so we're just talking about the entire thing. I liked how a lot of stuff was called back. I think stuff was set up in a way where I didn't think something was going to be a call. Like, normally we read these things, like loads of things. Lex Luthor, like his whole thing, going into the electric chair. At one point when the interview, or he's in prison at one point, he's reading a book on, like, mixology, mixing drinks. And then that turns out to be the why he's not bothered about getting electrocuted, because he's made from prison, like, managed to source the ingredients to make this thing that gives him powers. Yeah. And he could have escaped any time as well, as we later learn when Clark Kent gets out that way. Yeah. That's all called, like, that's shown little bits at a time before getting there. The fact that he has superpowers for 24 hours, and that's the thing in the second issue that Clark was doing for Lois, and then later there's the robot is going on about a data breach because Lex stole the data from the Fortress of Solitude, or like however he stole it. It's given enough that, like, that's what's happened.
Do you think that's enough to string together an otherwise pretty lackluster story?
That's a fucking bad faith question. It's like, do you think that good thing you've mentioned is good enough for a bad thing? Like,
well, no, but it's not a bad faith. I'm not asking you questions in bad faith.
But that's a loaded question. Like,
well, a few little callbacks. Yeah, I get it. They did those things.
This is one aspect I enjoyed. This is one thing I'm talking about. I enjoyed how when I'm reading it, there's things happen that's seemingly benign. Yeah. And then later you go, oh shit, it's that. And again, I'm not saying a callback in itself is a sign of quality, but what I'm saying is when I'm reading it and enjoying it, and then it goes, oh, you remember that thing earlier? Here it is back again. I like the sun monster thing. Like, I thought, again, with comics and like media in general, when it's not as good for me, it's when it does something and you go, that's going to be called back to later. Like, that's kind of showing their hand in trying to be, like, clever. They've just shown the hand. You go, well, I know that's going to happen later now. With this, when they introduced the Sun Eater in the Fortress of Solitude, the fact they introduced that, I thought the reason for it, the reason they wrote that in, is to show, imagine a monster that will eat the sun in your solar system, right? Most other people with powers, superheroes or whatever, would be like, we can't let this thing live.
Whereas Superman keeps it in his house.
Exactly. And he's like, this is an animal. It's not a evil monster or anything. Like, it eats suns, but that's its natural thing.
So I make it sun.
making little suns. That again, superhero shenanigans. That is cosmic shenanigans that Superman operates in.
Yeah.
But the fact he's feeding it, keeping it alive, and he's going to release it like in the universe so it goes away, so it doesn't eat our sun and he can keep it alive. So that whole thing, what it was getting across to me was this, just showing more of how, well, the better word is, nice Superman is. Like how he's trying to save everything, even an animal that might not be like sentient or anything, but he's like, that doesn't deserve to die. And has the power to make it right. And then when it comes back later with the Solaris, I think his name is, the evil son, and I'm like, oh, he's finding an evil son, and I don't know, I can assume how it's gonna go, but whatever. Then the sun thing turned up. I was like, oh shit, it's that thing back. Like I didn't think that was coming back. So again, that I enjoyed that as a not even necessary callback, just like setting stuff up. Nothing felt like I was almost interpreted that as a Deus Ex character.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it, I was like, yeah, all right, it's good luck. I don't think it doesn't reach Deus Ex character.
But he set it up earlier on, so
yes,
it's fine.
Exactly. He released it then, and if you're an animal and you've just been released from an area, but you actually didn't mind where you were, you might naturally go back to that. Like releasing an animal, but you've been feeding it, and it just comes back. It's like, yeah, you were feeding me, and it was all cool. Like, I can see that. And then sees the guy who was feeding him being attacked by the thing that you eat.
Well, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
there's a logical consistency there.
But I enjoyed how it's all set up. It didn't knock me over the head with it at the start.
Yeah. Okay.
The actual, again, another callback, the Supermen from the future, they're a message they're talking about the bad sun. Like one of your trials before you die, you defeat the evil sun Solaris or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it mentions like a bunch of things he does in the future. So I'm like, okay, that's just one of the things. And then when the Solaris is mentioned, I go, okay, yeah, that's a callback that I was just like neutral to. I was like, they mentioned that, now it's happening, fine.
So
do you want me to mention other callbacks I enjoyed?
No, we're good. You made your point.
All right.
There's the other Superman coming back, right?
Yeah, that issue I also really enjoyed. The one in Smallville.
Yeah, right. So
there's one part which I do think wasn't made clear, and I had to go back and reread. So
is this the fact that one of the Supermen is him from the future?
Not that it's him. I kind of saw that coming because the bandage face was very, very heavy-handed. What I was slightly confused about and had to go back and reread was when this one was set. I didn't know if the Clark we met, because at one point he's like...
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense, because we know he's going to die, and yet we meet him from the future, and it's also the same him from the future that he's using that telescope to look at.
Yeah, so what I realized after going back and rereading was that set like years and years ago when Clark had just got out of university.
Yeah.
And so
No, that made sense to me.
Yeah.
I got that.
But again, I didn't know where we were in the story. It was like, oh, he's home visiting his parents. That's one thing he would do before he dies. And then it was like, oh, my son's studying to be a journalist. Like, oh, wait, hang on. So this isn't like him now. Yeah. But then he was just in the Superman suit. And I was like, should he be Superman by now? Like, is that a thing he does yet? Like, fresh out of university? Well, I guess he has in this one.
And then also the whole passage where the other Supermen turn up. And the bandage guy takes his bandages off and he's like, oh, cheers for letting me see my dad one last time.
Yes.
That was the one thing I liked.
Yeah.
That is the one
of the
thing,
best bits, for sure.
That is the one thing I liked, because I was like, that's a cool use of the time. And again, not super original, having somebody go back in time to see a loved one. Like, there's just a thing. But the character model for the little Superman on the cloud...
Yeah.
What the fuck was that thing?
So he's from the future. He's a version of a character that... a fifth dimensional character who exists in this time, a character called Mr. Mix's Pixelix. So he's a fifth dimensional god, essentially. But the thing is, he's not evil, he's not bad. He's fascinated by Superman. So he just kind of does stuff to.
But he's not showing his true form, is he? He's taken on that form.
I think this is a different fifth dimensional god within that same race of fifth dimensional gods.
But when you look at it, what the fuck is this?
Oh yeah, he looks weird. There's another fifth dimensional god called Batmite who's obsessed with Batman, but he's more like positive. He's like, I just want to be your sidekick. Mr. Mix's Pitlick is more kind of like, I've done a wacky thing, you're gonna have to deal with it, because he just wants to see. He makes Superman like run around, chase
like
his tail a bit, because he's just amused by it. And then it gets to a point where Superman's like, I'm not falling for your games anymore, and Mix's like, you're not fun, and fucks off, But that's the basic character.
Fucks off to bother Dick Grayson.
I mean, he would stand a chance. Like, he plays for Superman because Superman's a god compared to humans.
Yeah.
Dick Grayson just be like, "You're really nice looking, you know that? What a sweet ass."
That issue, that moment in that issue where Kal-El's band had just come off, and we realise that it's our Superman from the future, and it's like, okay, that's kind of sweet.
Yeah. And I think this built on a great previous Superman thing from the Christopher Reeves film. I've said it before about how they kill Superman's dad and how it's done well in the Reeves one versus how they did it badly in the Snyder one.
I didn't think they killed him particularly well here.
No, I think they did the good version, which the point is that he's meant to die of something unpreventable.
Yeah.
So that's an early lesson for Superman. Say, despite all your power, there's still some things you cannot change. And the fact that he's like racing, he hears the heartbeat stop.
Yeah.
So he races back and he's like crying and I think he's like saying something like, again, a bit like not even over the top, like very bold face. He's like, I can save him, that kind of thing. But that is also how like a teenage superhero would be when their dad's dying.
I get it.
So that was all kind of like, oh, they're doing a more obvious version of the Christopher Reeve version of Superman's dad dying. But then again, when the band just come off and you go, I thought it was him, but now it's I didn't think about it when the dad was dying. So then after I go, oh, that's why he's here and doing this.
Something that didn't make any sense to me though.
Sure.
Is that grown-up Superman is looking at that bandaged Superman in the future. So he's using the telescope, and he specifically says, I'm looking at it in the future.
So I think...
And then we find out that that's him from the past.
I don't know for sure. And again, this might just... They've not explained it well enough, so that's why we're debating it. So I'll take that as a fair criticism. I don't know if that was our Superman in the future. I think that was a Superman who does have a bandaged face or something.
Why are there two Supermen with the exact same gimmick?
Because our Superman has seen, again, this is all inferring and headcanon. It's a gap.
But this is the point, though. It is an obvious gap, isn't it?
Yeah, but I looked at that and went, again, maybe we're missing something. We could have both missed something. But I looked at that and went, oh, he saw that Superman. I went, okay, I'll do that for when I go back in time.
But there's no textual evidence for that.
No, but it's a gap where that can happen. And I'm not saying that justifies the gap.
Yeah.
I'm saying when I read it, that's where my mind immediately went to. Not in a, oh, how can I make sense of this kind of thing? I just went, oh, that's probably what happened. Like my mind just goes straight to that. This is why I get really annoyed when there's like proper motivation plot holes or things that like don't make sense. When there's just gaps. And if there's too many gaps, that's a bad story. You've not told enough information. But this was a relatively small gap in the large scheme of things. Because the gap is just, I wonder how he got the idea or if that's him in the future or whatever, you know? And also, around that time...
But if the whole story is about him fucking dying, and then we meet a version of him from a delineated timeline that looks exactly like a version that Superman who is dying sees of himself in the future, that is a pretty notable plot hole.
But that's only if you know for certain that's the same Superman or not.
Yeah, I mean,
it is a gap. Like, I wouldn't class it necessarily as a plot hole, but it's definitely a gap where like what's going on here.
I think your judgment is clouded by the dark side on this one, mate.
I think you got pissed off by the art and you're taken out on every other aspect of the comic.
Well, but no, because
that has happened before.
What, with that Spider-Man comic that was atrocious?
No, those first 5 issues, the story was fine. The art was atrocious.
But the story wasn't any good.
It was fun. I enjoyed that. Like, it turned out, it later became one of the worst Spider-Man stories of all time. But
no, I think it was always bad, and I just called it early.
Disagree, but go on.
I just saw it before everyone else did because I've got a discerning eye.
For art, yes. Do I say what else I enjoyed about it?
You can do.
Again, outside of the art and your criticism about the shape of the person, however, I liked the portrayal, how Superman plays Clark Kent. So early on, he's tripping over himself trying to get into the office. And I did wonder at this point, I was like, is this intentional, like him tripping over and stuff? Or is there like a thing where if he's not moving at super speed, maybe that's not like, maybe it's harder for him to move slower and that's why he's tripping up and stuff.
Honestly,
but then go on.
Well, that doesn't make any sense because he moves normally all the time.
Yeah, but that's why I'm if you'd let me finish, that's where I was going with this. Because then we see a bunch of things where he's then tripping up later, but they're all very intentional.
Yeah.
He stops a guy getting hit by a car, just soon after that. in the interview with Lex, he
knocks a gun out of someone's hand, doesn't he?
No, it's an electrical cord.
Right.
He trips over and that unplugs it, and then Lex is like, "You clumbering oaf," and then he looks over. He's like, "Oh, you might actually have just saved me getting electrocuted there, like unwittingly."
I found it a bit vaudevillian.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could describe it as that. I wouldn't count that as a negative.
I don't know. I just thought it was a bit hammy.
Yeah. I mean, all right, fair enough. I just enjoyed it because, again, that I suppose that's one of the ways he puts people off thinking of him as Superman. Again, outside of he's the only person the same shape and size as Superman in this universe.
And again, he's always the only person the same shape and size as Superman. But I think there's a very obvious difference here to what we normally get, in as much as he's the only person who's the same shape and size as Superman, who also spends a lot of his time following Superman's girlfriend around. But I didn't think, like, just watching him kind of clumsily labor about, I didn't think it was particularly...
I get with the times after where it turned out he was doing something else.
Yeah.
Like that's, again, that, and then that recontextualized the first one and, oh, okay, this is something he does intentionally. Yeah. So I liked that, like how it's framed after the fact with, later the comic.
And that definitely harks back to like the earliest Superman stuff. Like him...
Well, that, so we're talking about the first, like the very first stuff that we read. That was very much when, like, you're a typical, like, sad sack man who can't do anything and blah, but when you run into the telephone box and you spin around, you're a bloody superhero. Like, I think that was very much a reflecting of, like, here's how the reader feels, and then here's what they aspire to be, kind of thing.
But it definitely felt like it was, because we've read other Superman stuff. At one point we read, like, the most recent one, and he was like, Clark Kent was like a cool guy in a baseball cap. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so modern Superman is moved away a bit from the Clark Kent as a bumbling oaf thing.
Yes, yeah.
And this to me was really harking back on like really early Superman and really early Clark Kent.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the intention, was they were trying to combine all aspects from previous iterations, or not even all aspects, but they're trying to take a bit from everything and combine it into this version.
Well, not by their own account. They were trying to do something new and fresh.
Yeah, like
and managed to reinvent it by doing the exact thing it started out doing.
But they're also trying to make it timeless, and part of timeless is taking from all bits that came before.
I've reinvented the wheel. Look, it's round.
I think you're really nitpicking on the word in reinvent.
Well, no, if you use a word like reinvent, you need to reinvent something.
I mean, we don't know what Superman comics were like at this time before this came out. Like, I've had another comic that Grant Morrison another comic that Grant Morrison wrote, which they're very famous for, is all new X-Men that came out, and that's described as reinventing the X-Men when that came out, because the X-Men was very stale and boring, and then they came along and like injected new life into this like kind of tired franchise.
Do they just go around saying they're reinventing things by doing it exactly the same as it's always been done? Is that their bag?
No, when you're the only person who thinks that of them.
Well, I mean, I've only read this one comic by them. I'm sure I'd read something else and like it.
Potentially. There's another comic I tried to read where they really got into like the magic and stuff. I'll tell you, after I've done talking about the comic, I'll tell you a little bit about Grant Morrison's magic beliefs.
Well, yeah, no, I'm more interested in Grant Morrison than the comic, if I'm honest with you.
I'm interested in both, but they're a very interesting person, so I can see where you're coming from there. Another aspect I really liked about this was the depiction of Lex Luthor and his motivations for hating Superman. I thought that was summed up quite well in this. Outside of what it used to be, where he was just the baddie. So at one point, he was just the bad guy, and Superman was stopping his evil things. And then it got to a point, there was a point in the history where they both knew each other from Smallville, and he was doing some experiment, and Superman saved him from the experiment going wrong, like a kind of Victor Von Doom thing. But because Superman saved him, his hair came out because of the thing. So there was a brief period of time, and I don't know how brief, could have been bloody ages, where Lex hated Superman because he blamed Superman for making him bald.
Right. I mean, that's a valid reason for disliking somebody. Lex Luthor here.
Yes.
It just very much felt like very standard Lex Luthor fare. In fact, the most recent comic where Superman and Lex Luthor were on almost more convivial terms was more interesting to me than this.
But then this, at the time, this was like, again, reinventing what had come before by like actually giving a more direct motivation that was more in line with their characters. And this became the kind of staple Lex Luthor motivation after this comic. Maybe it done a little bit beforehand, but I think this like popularized it to the point where it became the standard. And this, again, I really appreciate it. It's the idea that Lex Luthor, I think on the surface level, he outwardly talks about how he's just trying to get on with his stuff and Superman stops him. Like he literally says at one point, like someone's like, why do you hate Superman so much? He's like, imagine if you had someone who stopped everything you were trying to do, whatever. And it's like, that's not like, he stops when you're trying to blow up the city or whatever, like evil schemes. But I don't think that's the reason. And I think what it does get down, again, he kind of let slip even before that, where he says why he's doing the sun thing and trying to organize killing Superman. And he says he looked in the mirror and he noticed he had some wrinkles and he was aging.
Yeah, and Superman wasn't.
Exactly. And that's a very literal, you're running out of time to kill him. Like that's kind of the surface level. But what I think really comes down to what became the staple thing is Lex Luthor, if it wasn't for Superman, would consider himself, possibly quite rightly, the superior being on the planet.
But because he is mortal and Superman isn't.
Exactly. And Superman is the only being, again, within their story and not counting all the other superheroes. And even then, maybe still counting the other superheroes, Superman's the only being that makes him feel lesser. Then like no one else makes him feel that way, and he hates Superman for making him feel that way.
Yeah,
and I like that. I like that motivation. I think it's summed up from their earliest origins of him just being a baddie, just being the evil super genius. You know,
I mean, it kind of just feels like that to me. It doesn't feel that far removed from I am the bad guy, I do not like the hero.
I think a large element of this stuff, right, looking at this comic, and I have this where I think we've talked about it before, when someone recommends you something from the past, and by past I mean more than a year ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But when people recommend you big things from the not recent past, and they're like, you've got to check this thing out. It was so big and popular that it influenced everything that came after, right? And people, they tell you to check this out. You go check it out, and you go, oh, this doesn't do much for me.
Yeah.
Because you've watched you've listened to and interacted with all the stuff that it influenced after. So the original thing seems old hat because you've seen the tropes that it created afterwards separate from it. Do you know what I mean?
But I don't feel that way about Watchmen.
I don't think Watchmen changed. Like,
Watchmen hugely changed comic books.
It changed, I think, the medium, but what things came after Watchmen were influenced by it?
Everything?
Okay.
It made comic books grittier.
But they were pretty gritty at that time as well. I mean, like we worked out, was it something that just came, like Craven's Last Hunt or whatever, like came out. And again, I'm not saying that's as gritty as Watchmen. I'm not comparing it in grittiness, but you can tell like that direction was happening.
Are you actually trying to argue that Watchmen didn't influence comic books?
Watchmen influenced comic books, but what
massively.
I'm saying, but that just because one thing did does mean like something like this that could influence it. This is a more literal influence of like, oh, this character motivation that was popularized in this version, we're going to use that from now on. So when you go back to this, and I'm saying I really like how they popularized and revolutionized this character motivation, and you go, well, it just feels all the same. It's like because they literally took that thing and ran with it after this comic.
This doesn't feel all that far removed from comic books from the 80s and 90s.
Well, in the sense that all comics from around this time feel the same to those kind of things.
I don't know. I think the bad guy not liking the good guy, and let's be frank here, that is exactly the roles that these two characters fulfill in this comic book.
I mean, in the very vaguest big picture sense, yes.
But also in the literal sense.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the motivation for that.
Yeah, but Lex Luthor's motivation for not liking Superman is that Superman scuppers his plans. I don't think that's particularly interesting.
But I just said it's the deep down reason for it is not that. That's the surface level that he gives. He's just telling people the deep down reason is he just hates Superman because Superman makes him feel insecure.
Yeah.
And no one else does that.
No one else does.
And it's not like any other person be like, look, prime example, I thought this was funny. There's the character who works at the newspaper.
Yeah. And
he's constantly banging on about like, what does Lois see in Superman that I haven't got? It's like, you're so naive. But it's also like the wholesome opposite of Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
He's not threatened by Superman. If anything, he's like, what's this guy got that I haven't got? Like, I'm a great catch.
He's secure in a way that Lex Luthor isn't.
Exactly. And that's almost like a comical, but also again, accurate like mirror to Lex Luthor. And
his insecurities.
Yeah. So again, like this digs deeper past he's the baddie, he has an evil plan, Superman stops him because he's the good guy. Like, it gets deeper than that into he literally hates who Superman is as core. And again, reinforced by all the times that I really enjoy this dynamic, the amount of times that Superman is extending an olive branch to him, like constantly.
Because he makes him feel small.
And if any, well, he's just trying, he doesn't want Lex to hate him.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to help everyone. Like, that's core Superman. And another thing I liked about this representation, or how they're presenting him in this. And if anything, as you see, that makes Lex hate him even more.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very relatable thing, maybe just amongst petty people like myself, and I don't know if you count yourself in that or not, but you know when you just don't like someone, and then they're nice to you, and then you have that kind of like, great, now I can't even hate this person because they're a nice person. They've taken that away from me as well. Like, do you know what I mean?
Unfortunately, I don't
maybe
I don't have that level of pettiness.
Maybe this is why I identify with Lex Luthor so much.
Because you're both petty. I don't think you're that petty.
No, but I can see this logic of like, again, Superman, he's in the prison, and he's like, and he's like, I know you've killed me, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still not holding it against you. Like, I'm going to be gone in a couple of weeks. You're going to have this amount of time before you're dead. I know you can get out any time. Because he doesn't even have to be like, I know you've got a secret escape hatch or whatever. It's like, you're Lex Luthor. Like, you could get out any time. Do it. Do all the stuff. Like, prove me wrong. Like, make the world do all the stuff you say you're going to do if I wasn't here. Like, he's just trying to get into his head to be like, even after I'm dead, I still care about your well-being.
Yeah.
Like, after I'm gone. And Lex is just spits at the glass. Because he's just like, Lex would like Superman more if Superman was stooped to Lex's level. Do you know what I mean? If Superman was like, you a bastard, you killed me, you fucking asshole. I think Lex would be like, oh, maybe I misjudged you.
Well, actually, no. It's just that if Lex was able to get Superman to the point that he flipped on him, it would demonstrate to him that Superman's no better than him.
Potentially. But that's what I mean. Is he wouldn't, if Superman just proved him right, I don't think he would hold as much hate for Superman after that. But because he doesn't, that angers Lex even more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And I think but he wouldn't, if he broke Superman in that way, I think he would then kind of count himself above Superman, and then he wouldn't pay as much mind. He'd still be, wary of him, but because he can't even get that,
he can't get a rise out of him.
He blames Superman for not giving him that, and it's that kind of like
nobody likes somebody they can't get a rise out of.
Exactly, and in this, the rise is stop being so good and pure, because you're continuing to prove you're better than me, Even when I try to make this is all the stuff that I took away. This is one aspect of comic that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this depiction and everything, and it made me think about all this extra stuff and these deep characters. Like, I think this is why I'm staying. I think this is a really good comic overall.
But unfortunately, it was just buried in amongst a lot of bollocks.
Yeah, and I definitely enjoy the bollocks more than you. And I'm not saying the bollocks, the fact that I'm calling it bollocks as well. Like, I'm not saying that's like, no, that was good as well. I just enjoyed that, and then really enjoyed. These are the moments why I will defend the Comic-Con. The bollocks, again, with the Samson stuff, I can say why I liked it, but I'm not going to be like, and no, you should like it too. Like, I'm not defending that. I can tell why I like it. This is the moments where I'm like, this is why it's good. This is why I will defend the comic in that way.
Yes, I can appreciate that.
And then the end with Lex Luthor, like, naturally he drinks the drink and he gets out, and again, nice little callback. I think that when he's got the mixer thing. Yeah. I tell you what, actually, before we get to the end, that whole interview with Lex and Clark, I really liked that whole issue. I thought that was really fun. I liked, he's so dismissive of Clark Kent, like, he obviously knows who he is, and that's an element of the whole Superman thing, which I don't know how long has existed and how long has, this has been a part of the characters or not, but there's whether this is started or whether it's taken it from before, but Lex cannot even fathom the possibility that Clark Kent is Superman.
Yeah,
and I think
nobody can. Yeah, even Lois can't.
Lois tried to prove it several times. Yeah, though. Like, for Lois, he had to literally, like, he mentions at one point, he's like, "How is it that you and Superman? How was Superman defending you in that when the assassination was put on Clark Kent? Like, how were you there?" And he goes, "Batman filled in for me." So, like, he had to resort to that kind of stuff to prove to Lois, like, see, we're standing next to each other. How could it possibly? Like, he had to do that much. Lex, I don't think he doesn't need to do anything like that, because Lex just, I think this is, again, maybe headcanon.
Well, I would imagine Lex Luthor doesn't really care who Superman really is.
So I think...
He's not interested in Clark Kent, he's only interested in Superman.
I think, to kind of support your point, to go take it even further, I don't think Lex even fathoms that Superman has any other identity.
Yeah.
I don't think because I think if he thinks, well, if I was Superman, I wouldn't have a job and live in an apartment and, I'd be a god.
He would only be Superman.
Exactly. So I don't think this is how much of a super genius that Lex Luthor is. He hasn't got the empathy to imagine someone doing differently to him.
Yeah.
He can maybe predict someone's moves, like, you're an empathetic person, so you might do this, this, and this. Yeah. But he can't put himself into the headspace of, what if you just try to live a normal life part of the time and be a part of humanity?
Yeah.
So I think that, again, that's my headcanon. I would like to see a comic explore that more. If I was somehow ever, like, commissioned to do a Superman comic, that would be something I would try and do. Would that
be the one?
I think that'd be an aspect I would try and bring into it, because I think that'd be, like, imagine Lex Luthor, like, going about his evil schemes or whatever, and he's like, damn, Superman stopped me again or whatever. And someone's like, yeah, I wonder if he's like, if he has got like a secret identity or something, and Lex like, oh my god, I've never even thought of that. Like, I
think if I got commissioned to write a Superman comic, right, I would play a little trick on the Superman fans, and it would exclusively be about Supergirl and Dick Grayson.
You could just do a Supergirl and Dick Grayson comic. Like, they sell those as well. It's not like they're not doing those characters.
Wouldn't a Supergirl Dick Grayson crossover be great?
I think it'd be really fun. I think that'd be a interesting kind of romance, like will they, won't they? Like, amongst all the superhero backdrop stuff.
Yeah,
I think that'd
totally.
be interesting.
Like, it would have that element to it. Because the one thing that this comic book was severely lacking, Ryan.
Are you pausing for dramatic effect? I'm taking out the pause in the edit.
Was more Dick Grayson.
Because we say that about everything.
We meet Robin, don't we?
You'd say that about I keep forgetting the bloody title. The book you like.
The Great Gatsby.
You would think that of The Great Gatsby.
But we meet Robin really briefly.
You'd think that of the Bible.
It needs more Dick Grayson. Because we meet Robin at one point.
Do we?
I'm so sure we meet Robin. Or somebody mentions Robin.
Yeah, they're talking about when he says Batman stuck in for me or whatever, and he goes, and they mention Robin. He's like, yeah, I always wondered if I should have got a sidekick.
Yeah, they mention Robin, and I'm like, are we going to get Dick Grayson? When do we get Dick Grayson?
It's a shame that in the Alan Moore one, that was Jason Todd.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Shame it wasn't the proper one.
It wasn't. Well, no, Jason Todd is the first one, isn't it? Oh, no, Dick Grayson's the first one, then it's Jason Todd.
Yeah, getting to the end of the Lex Luthor
right,
this, when we get to him being superpower and stuff, I like that, again, loads of little details that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a details guy. I liked when he busts out and Lex is getting his shit together.
Yeah.
And someone's like, what's happening now? And he's like, well, I've contacted this sun god Solaris, whatever, to weaken Superman first. It's like, even I'm not stupid enough to go just get powers and immediately take on Superman. Because I like that intelligence of even him being like, he's had superpowers his entire life. Yeah. I've just got them. Like, when he's gonna have me, like, if we go toe-to-toe now. So he's still doing all this other stuff.
But again, that doesn't really slot into the character very well, does it?
What, Lex Luthor?
It's a smart move. It's not the move that Lex Luthor would make.
100% it'd be the move he would make.
Well, no, because he's looking to prove that he's better than Superman. So his opinion of it would be, right, now we're on an even playing field.
No, he wouldn't do it. Go. No. Part of him weakening Superman, everything, that's all fair in the war.
Yeah.
That is him proving he's better.
Yeah.
He's not like, I'm not going to lose it in a fist fight like that I could lose. Like, I'm going to use my intellect to weaken you first and then beat you. And that's the entire game. That's the chess game. That's the entire chess game for him. He's like, I made you do this. I made you do this. And by the time we fought, I was at such an advantage that I beat you because I'm so good.
Right.
Like, that's how Lex operates in, I would imagine. I'd be very shocked for him to be like, no, let's even, like, he wouldn't allow himself to possibly get beaten because in his mind, that's not fair. So he's had powers entire his life. He just got powers first day. It's not fair in his mind.
Yeah.
Because he's not used to having powers and stuff. But then once it does get to the fight, and Superman's got barely any powers and stuff. And it's that kind of, again, a bit tropey. Maybe, I don't know how tropey this was by the noise. We've had it a lot more in recent years. But that near death speaking to a family member thing.
The Kal-El,
Kal-El, yeah.
Kal-El speaking with
Jor-El.
Jor-El.
Yes.
Jor-El.
But that stuff does contain a lot of the Morrison's views on like philosophy in the world and stuff. This idea, they kind of idolize Superman as the goal that humanity as a singular organism, like we're all cells of a body kind of thing. Superman is the ideal we are moving towards, like to become, not just in ethics and in philosophy, literally like godhood. Like if we all work together, we can achieve a singularity, where we are as powerful as Superman.
Did you notice the undercurrent theme of fascism running through some of this?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was watching Morrison stuff earlier, and they were talking about like how magic is possible for anyone, but it's what's the word? It's kind of crushed out by capitalism and like
capitalism's taking all the magic out of the world.
Yeah.
But look at my Harry Potter wand I bought from Warner.
Well, they use sigils apparently, and they were saying, well, they're using sigils as well. What's the McDonald's M?
Yeah.
If not a magic sigil? What's the Starbucks symbol? If not
Are
a
they
sigil?
proper deep into the magic stuff?
They do a talk from the night. I don't know if they still are.
Right.
But they do a talk in like the late 90s, I think.
Yeah.
And it's proper like magic is real. Don't take it from me. I'll give you the instructions. Go home, prove it, scientifically, see it work for yourself, and then come. Don't just take my word for it. I was told all this when I went to Kathmandu, and I was abducted by aliens because I went to Kathmandu to be abducted by aliens.
Do they think they've been abducted by aliens?
They were like,
are they a proper mad cunt?
They were like, I was doing a lot of drugs that week, but so.
God, they're clinically insane, aren't they?
Also, I should say as well, heavily Scottish as well. Very Scottish. This entire book was made by Scottish creators. They're all from Scotland.
Well, now I love it.
actually, I think it's good now, if anything.
Yeah, actually, I think it's great.
But yeah, they in this.
So they're Scottish.
Yes, they're talking about how they went to Kathmandu and saw the aliens. The aliens imparted all this information, and they were like, what they mean to say is that they were smoking a lot of hash at the time,
right?
But I think it's a Scottish thing. They call it dope.
Yeah.
So they talk about, I was having a lot of dope that week, but dope doesn't make you see stuff, whatever. And whoever's uploaded the video put a little thing to say, Scotland, dope means hash, not heroin.
Yeah.
So just to contextualize what they're saying.
Because ultimately they're Scottish, so the fact they're doing heroin wouldn't actually be that unusual.
No, but they might see aliens, it might be less special a thing.
So they are actually mad.
I mean,
like,
that's what
properly mad.
I mean, like they talk about similar stuff to Alan Moore, the magic of the collective, consciousness and all that. And
yeah, but Alan Moore doesn't claim to have been abducted by fucking aliens.
They also said that when they were writing this comic, The Invisibles, one of the characters intentionally looks like them, bald, leather jacket, like how they dress, and they wrote it and put the character looks like them through the kind of ringer bit where, like, health wise, they like collapse lungs and stuff.
Yeah,
and they said a few months later, I was in the hospital with collapsed lungs, and they couldn't explain why. And it's because I manifested it.
Do you think
in this
it was
comic.
all the dope they were smoking?
I mean, they just had it happen to their character, who was their insert author character. So who knows? And then apparently they were like, and then I wrote my character having a girlfriend, and then these women just started showing up in my life who looked remarkably like the woman in the comic.
And then when that comic gets reissued, suddenly she's got massive jugs.
If he adds that, if they add that to their own character, then I don't know.
Well, no, I meant the women. So
Right.
they draw all these women in the comic, and then they get all these women, and then they go back and do a re-edit, and they're like, I'm just gonna there you go.
Yeah. That's it. If they want it, maybe that's, I don't know. I don't know how this manifesting stuff works.
I mean,
they do have very interesting theories about time and how we're all. I listen to this stuff, like, I can't wait to get into this on the podcast.
Yeah, this is more interesting than the comic book, right?
Yeah, we'll get back to podcast.
If you'd have led with this, I might have cooled off a bit before I started talking about the comic.
I tried to, and you came in too. I was going to, and then you came in too hot. I was like, all right, I guess we're getting into the comic.
I really don't like this comic.
But so the way they look at comic books in this as the characters, how they experience the comic book, is same as how we experience time.
Yeah,
kind of similar to the whole Dr. Manhattan and his perception of time.
All at once.
Yeah, But they're saying what we are the fifth dimensional being. So we're in the fourth dimension, third dimension. But for time is the fourth dimension.
Yeah.
So it's creatures outside the fourth dimension, if they want to grow a new being, they can't do it outside of time because it won't grow. So they have to put it in the fourth dimension where we are, or in the third dimension to experience time, to grow.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and how people are from the outside, when they look at us, they see our entire timeline.
Yeah.
Because to them, they're outside that dimension. So as we look at a third dimensional creature, we see all their aspects, but to them, they might only experience the second dimension.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of what they're about. And I tried to read their comic, The Invisibles, that was all about this, and I generally gave up. Like, I couldn't kind of wrap my head around it.
Is it just nonsense?
Yeah, but the point of that comic is to get across their musings on the world and how they think it works and magic and stuff. So I think I'll give it a pass, and I don't think it was meant to be entertaining.
I mean, my hot take on this now is that the comic book isn't very good, and I do not like it.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the better Superman comics.
You can't just, like, every time I'm driving towards a larger point, interrupt me and say that you liked it.
All right, go on.
The comic book isn't very good.
Okay.
And I don't like it.
In your
but
opinion?
I am quietly impressed that DC let that mad cunt write Superman.
I mean, they are, outside of your opinion, they are considered to be one of the best comic book writers of all time. Like,
genuinely?
Yes. On par. A lot of people on par. Some may even better than Alan Moore.
And this title, specifically.
Yes, one of their best. This is, if you look at a list of Morrison's best comics, this is number one on a bunch. Like,
really?
Most. Yes.
Up there with Alan Moore.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
And the thing with Moore was kind of restrained by the comic medium and the comic structure, the superhero structure. Morrison more thrives in it, even and adding their mad shit to fit within these pre-existing things. So I think comic book fans appreciate Morrison more in some ways.
Yeah.
Morrison in some ways. Moore is kind of like, look at that thing they're doing over there. Like, and you can appreciate, and like, it's crazy. Like, Watchmen is so outside of everything superhero. Yeah. Killing Joke is a non-canonical Batman story. That's, again, very different to everything else that came before.
And hugely influential in Batman going forward.
They was meant to be non-canon. They were like, actually, we're going to take some of these bits, you know. But whereas Morrison, I think, operates more within and does a lot of meta stuff with characters as well. Like, there's a character Animal Man who interacts with Morrison as the writer in the comic. But then above Morrison, there's fifth dimensional beings who are like writing Morrison's story.
So they're really into the fifth dimensional being stuff. Like, that's a really core
big part of everything. Yeah,
really
they believe.
Core part of their belief system and their creative output.
Yes. Again, but I don't know if they're still about. I haven't seen a recent interview. They might still all be the same. Maybe they're onto completely different stuff.
Are they still writing?
I don't know when the last thing they wrote is. Let me double check that. So apparently, seeing at least, I don't know if it's definitive, but there was, as of 2020, there was a Green Lantern comic, which was Morrison's last ever DC work, apparently. So as of fairly recently, they were still writing comics.
Yeah, wild.
And DC was still, again, DC, they were like, oh, you've done the most critically acclaimed Superman story that's ever been told. Keep coming back.
Is this actually like the
I'm not
pinnacle?
I'm not lying to you for the past hour.
This can't be.
Most people think it is.
It can't be the best Superman comic ever written.
I don't know if, again, there's probably arguments about the top one, but like 90% of people who are in any kind of know any kind of comic reader who's read a bunch of Superman stuff, at least like, again, I'll say 80%, just to give myself a little leeway. 80% would put it in the top 5.
Really?
Yes.
That's astonishing. I'm genuinely astonished by that.
I mean, everyone has those things, the things that are popular with everyone else that you just don't like that. Everyone has those things, and this is just one of your things. Maybe you might not be that big a fan of the Superman character, and that's more like you've enjoyed stuff by. Like, again, Moore did a pretty weird thing with him, but maybe the actual stories. I tell you, we are going to do more Superman stuff in the lead up to the Superman film that James Gunn's doing. So I'll see if I'll find, I was just going to do the reading material that Gunn gave for his film, and this was one of the things that is influencing the film he's making.
Right, so he quoted this as an influence.
One of the influences, yes. But instead of doing the other influences, I'll cross-check them. I'll see if I can find what other titles are considered the best Superman titles.
Yeah.
We'll do a couple of those in the lead
And
up.
see what I think.
Yeah, see what you compare. I'd be interested to see if you enjoyed a different one and what you would find the difference from that one to this one.
Because you were expecting me to like this, weren't you?
Yeah, not necessarily to love it, but I thought you'd like it more than you did. As soon as I saw some of the faces, I thought he's definitely going to rip on the art. Like, I was anticipating that.
Yeah.
I was surprised that it extended so much into the story. And
yeah,
because
okay.
I've had so many parts of the story, I'm like, I really like this aspect.
There was a couple of moments that I liked, but there just wasn't enough in it that I liked that outweighed everything that I didn't like about it.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
And the fact that it was so visually unappetizing doesn't help.
Yeah, for me, I did not like some of the faces, but if there wasn't like a close-up thing of a face, I enjoy like the fortress. Like I thought all the landscapes and all the backgrounds and stuff, I thought those were great.
There's one Easter egg that I thought was cool.
I was going to mention this as well, but go on.
It's the penny.
Yes. I literally wrote down, I was like, does everyone have a giant penny in there?
Yeah, no.
I was trying to think as well, what's the positive version of a lair? Is it a base?
Yeah, it's a base.
Is it? Because that base seems quite neutral. Lair is quite evil coded, isn't it? Like, no one has just come to the lair. It's like, are you a supervillain? Like, what?
Well, I suppose Fortress of Solitude has kind of become...
Well, Batcave is, I think, more synonymous.
Yes, I think you're right.
But you can't just call everything a Batcave. Like, lair
it has to have a Batman in it.
Yeah, or a bat lair in a cave.
But no, the penny did make me chuckle.
Yes. And it's a Joker penny as well, oddly enough.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? It's definitely one that you got from Batman.
Yeah, like Batman's like, I got loads of pennies. Do you want one for... Or that was a moving in gift for his Fortress of Solitude.
Batman only has the one giant penny because he's got the giant penny, the T-Rex, the big playing card, hasn't he?
Normally a playing card, yeah. The T-Rex and the penny are the most common, and the playing cards were like the second most common after those.
Do you remember the first time I saw the T-Rex? I was like, what the fuck is that doing there?
I generally had you don't know about, like, that's a thing people don't know about.
Yeah, like that's a deep cut.
It's so deep. It's from the Batman animated series.
Right.
And even then, that didn't seem weird at the time because that was just, Batman was doing a weird thing a week with like a villain of the week. So the fact that he had these memorabilia, I don't know if, when you see something as a kid, you just never even think about it.
Contextually, it made sense there.
And you just carry on with you. But that was such like a realization of you, like, wait, what is this for? And I was like, that's not
a comic book.
That's not a normal thing that everyone just knows intuitively.
Yeah. But no, I think the fact that I found this so visually unappetizing definitely has coloured my opinion of it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But the odd moment where the story made me smirk or smile was outweighed by the fact that I just found the whole thing really turgid and stodgy.
Fair enough.
It didn't page turn for me. I don't think the action sequences were paced very well.
What about the scene? I think I agree with you on the action in the sense that I don't think it was the priority at all. And that's not to excuse it, like, it could have been better, but I can see why. Yeah, but I can see why they were definitely prioritizing the character story over the fights.
Yeah, but again,
I've definitely seen better Superman fights. But
yeah,
I don't know if I've seen better Superman fights from before this. I don't know if that's like a modern thing where artists became better at depicting like superhuman flying fights, as opposed to like if it's Batman, that they've had that down for, drawing humans fighting each other.
I mean, pretty much since the first Action
early
Comics.
Yeah, well, I was going to say early man. Like, as soon as they were drawing things, it was like drawing them punching each other and stuff.
And throwing spears at animals and shit.
The idea of a person flying through the air and punching and kicking, like that sort of... There's a weird thing where like Superman has a weird version of like a Kryptonian judo or something. Yeah. These developers like martial arts that you do while you can move in, 6 dimensions as well. So, it's I wouldn't be surprised.
Morrison's got a hard on right now. Now you're talking about 6 dimensions. Yeah. They're fucking off, mate.
Yeah. Any fourth dimension or higher, they're like, sorry, what? You what, mate? I can't do a Scottish accent.
Oh, 1 minute. Hey, laddie, do you ken about the 5th dimension, eh?
You've been to Kathmandu.
You've been to Kathmandu and smoked so much fucking derp you got taken to the 5th dimension.
I do like we added a card to our Rolodex of the weird comic book creators and our impressions of them.
That is, do you know what?
I'm better at Moore, you're better at Morrison.
Yeah, that is the thing I'm taking away from this episode, is that I'm I'm definitely going to do a comic book facts TikTok about Morrison.
Oh yeah, like go YouTube, like look up that there's videos about them, and there's videos that they have, the interviews they've done.
The videos they've done more unhinged than the things that people say about them.
I will show you the first few seconds of the video. If you search Grant Morrison on YouTube, it's a video from like the late 90s. It's a black background. They're standing at a pedestal. There's like a black background, and you'll see what I mean.
And they're bald in a big leather jacket.
Yeah, that's the only look they do, I think.
It's all they've got.
So it's the first video comes up. You search Grant Morrison. It's Grant Morrison on Chaos Magic, the Occult, and Sigil creation.
Cool.
And this is the first few seconds of the video that I'm showing Jamie.
Mate! The only way I can describe it is if anyone knows what Irvin Welsh looks like. It's like...
I mean, a bald person. Like, a bald masculine-looking person.
A bald, mask-presenting Scottish person. You know who Irvin Welsh is, don't you?
Yeah, Trainspotting.
Yeah. It's like Irvin Welsh in a black leather jacket going apeshit.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the beginning of the talk. Like they've come out and just gone and then like start the talk.
Wild, they're unhinged. I love it.
Yeah, and so that's that. I think as much as we can say on our differing opinions of All-Star Superman. It was a far more interesting episode than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to go back and forth like Watchmen, not antagonizing like Spider-Man, like that's Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, we've not had an episode where we've disagreed this hard since Amazing Spider-Man. And that was fully like 2023. That was a while ago now.
Our disagreements have definitely been a lot more minor. Like, I don't think we've disagreed on like the overall quality.
No.
All our disagreements have been like, I didn't like this art panel. Oh, I didn't mind it. Like, oh, I didn't like this character motivation. I didn't mind it. Like,
or differing opinions of what we took away from it. It's very rare these days that we come in at such opposite ends. Like one of us loving something and the other one just openly reviling it.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while since that.
I needed it.
I don't think we've had anything that I've hated that you've loved or liked. The only thing I could think, and it's such a minor thing, was what was that comic with the guy who it was in the future and he hated robots and he suddenly just broke. I can't even remember the name.
I quite liked that. Yeah,
I could not stand the lack of character motivation.
Yeah,
he just
whereas
hated
I was
robots
just like,
all of a sudden.
But I was just like, I get it. I'm with you, guy. Like, I also hate the robots.
I was like, no, I need something a bit more. Like, why do they? And again, maybe that's my thing. I really like good character motivation. I got that from this, whereas you, I think, art is a much bigger thing to you than me.
And story, just like plot and story is really important to me. It's why I like James Bond so much, because it had so like
that's a very tight story, and I think that's a version of storytelling. Do we kind of like, is tight storytelling objectively good storytelling or not? Like I think that's
so.
I think there's an argument to me. I'm not saying it's not, but I think there's an argument there. I've been thinking a lot about like story structure. Like if people just go against the norm, is that like such a bad thing if they're doing it differently?
It's so interesting because obviously I have to start talking about books when we get into this realm. Like I liked Ulysses, which is a hot mess. I liked Infinite Jest, total hot mess. So I don't exclusively like really tight stories, but it's so hard because we're now getting into just what we like and don't like.
Yeah, there's definite
as opposed
advantages.
to our objective thoughts on things.
There's definite advantages to tight storytelling. It's simpler to interpret. It's easier to read. Whereas when things get a little weird, there was something. Oh, I was talking. We were talking about David Lynch the other day. Like prime example of doing things differently and just letting the work speak for itself.
And I love Mulholland Drive.
Whereas I think I've seen a bit of Mulholland Drive. I haven't seen it properly, but I tried to watch Twin Peaks,
which is really good.
Twin Peaks is one of the best things that I don't understand, but I'm too frustrated by my lack of understanding of it to properly appreciate it.
Have you watched Eraserhead?
Yeah, years and years ago.
That's wild as well.
Yeah, and that is just meant to be that's very raw, like interpretive storytelling, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to say that Eraserhead has a story, you can only really say that in the loosest of terms.
Yes, it has a beginning, middle, and end, but they're not necessarily not really consecutive.
No. But no, it honestly rubbed me the wrong way almost the entire way through.
Yeah, I appreciated it for what it was, I think, and I really enjoyed certain parts and I don't know. Maybe my opinion was affected by going into it already thinking of it as good. Like when you go into something that's considered high quality, if it's from sources you generally trust, for me, it's just the general comic book community, which I do trust on the most part. Then I don't go in. I go into it kind of like, oh, I guess this is. It frames your mind before you see it.
You went into this knowing that it was one of the most highly regarded Superman comics ever written.
Yes,
I did not.
And there's there is a thing about people. A lot of people don't watch reviews of stuff if they know they're going to see something.
Yeah.
If you're debating whether to see something or not, then you're just going to look up reviews, whoever you trust the sources.
Yeah.
But if you already know you're going to see something, I think a lot of people know their opinion is going to be influenced. There's definitely a thing where, I have it in an opposite way, where if I hear something is good and then it doesn't quite meet my expectations, then I go, oh, that was a bit of a letdown because I had an expectation. But if I go into something with no expectations or even bad expectations and it's the same level, I go, oh, that was a nice surprise. And I'm much more positive because of where I thought it was beforehand.
I had Breaking Bad ruined for me in exactly that way. When I was a student, everyone was like, you need to watch Breaking Bad. You need to watch Breaking Bad. You need to watch Breaking Bad. It's so special. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And then I finally tried it and wasn't bowled away by it. And it completely, I was like, I came into this expecting The Sopranos.
But the problem with Breaking Bad, and this is a wider conversation. No, like I watched Breaking Bad when it first came out. I really enjoyed the first episode. I thought it is one of the best first episodes of a show ever.
Yeah.
But it was only me and everyone else, I think, only got to that opinion of it being the greatest show ever.
Yeah.
Later in the season. So if you've watched Breaking Bad to its end, or even to its middle, like where it's really good, like season 3 onwards. If you then go to someone and go, this is the greatest show ever, and they just watch episode 1, they're expecting the first episode to be the greatest television show of all time.
Exactly.
And even if it's a great first episode of a series, you cannot give someone too much expectations.
And I just went back to watching like Mad Men or Game of Thrones or whatever I was watching.
Which are probably other things you went in with less expectations.
Yeah, this is it. I remember the guy who showed me Game of Thrones is a friend of mine, Luke. If you're listening, probably not. And he was like, "Oh mate, there's this cool fantasy show. Do you want to? You like?" He was from Yorkshire. Was Luke. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to try this fantasy show I've been watching? My dad read the books. He really liked them." And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And he put it on, and he was showing me the first episode of Game of Thrones season 1 about 2 months before season 2 came out. Right. So really early, not
tainted by that everyone hyping up so much.
Because it only really started getting that overhyped to like season 3.
Yes.
And I watched it and went, wow, that's really good. And then we binge watched a season of it over like 2 days together or something. But again, he led me up the garden path with her. He's like, oh, there's this new fantasy show I've been watching. It's kind of cool. My dad liked the books. Do you want to have a go? Like
someone trying to coax a rescue cat or dog from under the sofa in the first day. Like, there's a little treat. I'm not going to do not too much. Just put it on the floor there. You can have it if you want.
Just one episode with a beer and dinner. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but yeah, no, it's and again, I wonder if my opinion of it would have been different had I gone into it with high expectations. Maybe it would have been even worse.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to tell, isn't it?
I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of bits from this comic. People just post them on Reddit. It's like, look at this cool panel. Look at this cool page, whatever. There's one that gets posted a lot, and it's the one where the girl is going to jump off the building.
Yeah.
And Superman comes down. I don't know if I've seen like a better version of that. That one gets posted a lot because it's a quick, easy, like single page look at Superman being Superman, basically.
Yeah.
There's another one. I can't remember where. It must be from a different comic, but it's a girl who's threatening to jump off. And she sees Superman and she goes, "Don't try and save me, because even if you do, I'll just come back here another day.
Yeah.
So don't." And he's like,
futility of it all.
And he talks her down.
Right.
And I thought when I first saw this page, I was like, oh, it's this. And I went, oh, wait, it's not. Like
it's just a different time.
It's a lot quicker. It's the sentiment, but it's a rushed version of it. Rushed compared to what I saw the better version of it.
Yeah.
So that's All-Star Superman, I think, is what we can say. And I think when it comes to expectations, I think we've learned a little something about that, which is why it's interesting when expectations are set in terms of things like podcasts and stuff, that could be quite tumultuous as well.
Oh, no, this is what you're doing. I thought you were arriving at... He's doing calls to action.
I don't know. I'm not telling the audience to do anything. I'm just saying it's interesting where expectations are set when people are told things in podcasts, like to email in what their expectations were for a certain Superman comic. And they would be told
We're not doing this today.
They would be told to send them to something like comiclyra@gmail.com or something. And the expectations of podcast, when you see someone that's highly rated, you think those people who listened to it, if they really enjoyed it, they probably went on their podcatcher of choice and gave it 5 stars if they really enjoyed it.
I'm not contributing. I'm just letting you run out of steam.
Fair enough. And when it comes to expectations as well.
No! Stop it!
Sometimes expectations are raised when people tell you to check out their YouTube channels, which can sometimes happen in podcasts. Like they'll set, for an example, they'll say, check out Comic Stan on YouTube, and maybe there's a video coming out about Deadpool coming out soon, which can be very interesting.
No, we're not doing this week.
And maybe they'll tell you to check out
ourselves.
the TikTok page where there's interesting shorts being made about the topics of comic books.
No, don't go to the TikTok. None of the shorts are good.
I'm not saying to go to anything. I'm talking
about
the broad topic of expectations.
What I've done here is we came up with that bit as a fun way.
When we say we came up, it just started. And also, I don't know what bit you're talking about.
As like a fun way to sort of, interrupt the idea of doing calls to action. And now I'm just being disruptive throughout.
I've never done a call to action.
But no, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to
technically. I've never.
You're
done
not
one.
allowed to technically correct us on this.
If I had my glass, technically.
Yeah. Oh, he's getting the glasses out for it.
Oh God, he's put his glasses
on. No! Too much power.
Anyway, and also expectations. Tell your friends the podcast was cool. That's how we get to new listeners. And thank you for listening.
Cheers.
Thank you. Goodbye.
It's been a hot mess of an episode.
Well, I tried my best, but what can you do?
Yeah, it's my fault. I blame myself.